Hey guys, and welcome to this special segment of Mostly Peaceful Latinas. I'm your host, Bella, and today we are going to be continuing our series where we are highlighting Miami-Dade candidates running for those primary races that maybe you're not exactly paying attention to right now. So I am going to bring on Miss Mary Blanco. Hi, Mary, currently running
Hi.
in School Board District 3.
Seven,
Mary,
seven.
7, sorry. I've had so many interviews today. School Board District 7. Mary, thank you for coming on the show. Really appreciate it.
No, thank you for having me.
Absolutely. So, Mary, let's start off. You're in District 7. Can you give the audience an idea of exactly what that covers in the Miami-Dade area?
Yes. So District 7 is going to be mostly west of US 1 and approximately south of 80 Southwest 88th Street. There's sections between Kendall Drive and Sunset that are mine, and as you slope out west, it starts to drop down to 112th Street. But more or less, that's the average. Just about everything that includes all of the Kendall area, the Richmond Heights, South Miami Heights, and all the way down to Redlands and South Dade.
Fantastic. And Mary, we talked to a couple of the other candidates that are running races, but you are already sitting on the school board. You were appointed by Ron DeSantis in 2023 or 2022?
January of 23.
January of 2023. Can you tell us a little bit kind of like what was that experience like? First of all, did you have any intentions of like running for office or anything like that? What was that like?
So I'll share a little bit about that. I'm actually also a trustee with Miami-Dade College, and Robert Alonso, who is currently on the board as well, in April, and now I can't even think of the year. I guess it was in April of 2022, he filed to run for school board. And so he came up to me after one of our meetings with the college and said, hey, I want to let you know that I filed. Have you ever considered running for school board? We need good people that know education. And I looked at him like he was crazy. That was not anything that I had ever in my life even considered. Never a thought. But it piqued my interest because I have been an educator for 30 years. I did spend 15 years in public school system. And the moment that I had the realization that it required a campaign, I literally laughed out loud, put my phone down, forgot about the entire thing, didn't even mention the conversation to my husband. 8 months later, I get a call from the governor's office that they need to appoint someone. My resume is on file because I am, already a trustee with the college. And I thought, this is now the second time this comes around to me without me seeking it. The one thing that made me say, no, I'm not doing it as a campaign. And now that's been removed. So I, after a conversation this time, of course, with my husband and family, I agreed. It was quick. I got the approval at 5 p.m. the day before a board meeting, was sworn in the next morning. So it was just kind of dive right into a board meeting. But it's been great. It's been a great experience. And then after being there for a few months and seeing that ability to create positive change and to have an opportunity to protect our children, because that's all my life. All I've done is work with children. That gave me the motivation to go ahead and do something I never thought I would do, which is campaign for an elected position.
Can you tell us a little bit about that, like your background with children? What's your background in, and how do you end up here?
Right. So I always knew I wanted to work with children. My intent was to go on to be a clinical child psychologist. While I was doing my graduate work, I got offered a job teaching at my prior high school. Uh, and I took it because I thought, okay, this is a great opportunity to at least work with children, build up my resume as I go on to get my psychology degree. Um, and I fell in love with learning within a week and a half. What I really enjoyed was seeing how differently children learn, right? I would present the lesson, the majority of the students understood it, but finding different ways of introducing the material, teaching the material to ensure that every student understood fascinated me. So as I had those conversations with my professors, I switched to school psychology. And so I spent 6 years teaching high school science. Then I went on to be a school psychologist in Broward County Public Schools for 15 years. And I really enjoyed that. But I missed, that initial calling of being a psychologist and working consistently with students or with children. I didn't have that as a school psychologist. We really just did evaluations and moved on to the next child. And so in looking to kind of fulfill that, I switched over to being a counselor. And so for the last 8 years, I've been a counselor at a high school, working with students for the 4 years that they're there with academic advising, personal advising, and then also doing the college advising.
Perfect. Like, most of the guests that we've had on don't have accomplishments to run on, but can you tell us a little bit of maybe some of the things that you've accomplished while sitting on the school board that you're most proud of?
Okay, so as I mentioned, being a high school counselor now, one of the things that I started doing that I had never done in the past was that college advising and preparing students through that college application process. And so when I got on the board and started to meet with all of the different deputy superintendents and what they did, one of the questions I asked was, what are we doing to prepare our students that want to apply to college? And I found out that each of our high schools only has one college advisor. Some of our high schools have 700 students. It is impossible for one person to serve 700 students. And I know they may not all want to go to college, but we need to make sure that they're accessible. Unfortunately, there aren't enough funds and enough bodies to hire to have more college advisors. So the very first item I put in 2 months after being the board was to create a summer workshop where the high schools could use some time in the summer and have students voluntarily come in. And that's actually one of the reasons that I decided to run, because we were able to do that. This is now the second summer we've done that. I don't have results yet of how this summer went, but the first summer we had 2,500 students attend throughout the county. And they had that ability to start working on their college application, get some help on their personal statements, get some help on the financial aid. Many of them don't apply thinking that they can't get the funds, so they were able to start working on some of that process with completing the FAFSA. So I got those results the same week that I pretty much had to make a decision whether or not I was going to run. And so that's I consider one of my biggest
Like a
accomplishments so
confirmation that
far.
you're doing the right thing. No,
Absolutely.
I grew up in school in I went to school in Miami-Dade County, and I remember we had a very large graduating class, and there just wasn't enough resources to help, predominantly a demographic that are for the first time college goers probably in
Exactly.
their entire family. So, they didn't know where to start or begin. So that's a fantastic
Right.
initiative.
Yeah. And so what a
Um,
lot of the high schools have done, which is nice, is as they've had those students come in the summer, they make them ambassadors and they're having them help the other students then, right? So
no,
that
oh,
there's
goodness.
more resources available. But aside from that, I've put in items to increase our number of counselors. So we have increased pipelines with different universities and agreements to try to get some counselors in. I've had conversations at the state level of ways we can facilitate our teachers who sometimes, are they're exhausted of being in the classroom, but they're not ready to leave education. So finding ways that we can have them perhaps become counselors. I've had vaping detectors installed in 9 of our high schools for the start of this school year, not with the intention of getting students in trouble, but for the intention of being able to educate students about the dangers of vaping. Those are, I would say, 3 of the biggest ones that I've been able to accomplish so far. I've got a few other things that I've done. I'm waiting for the district to get back with me on the results and the feasibility of some items.
When you're kind of looking at your platform over the next 4 years, and you're in this position now where now you're running, you're going to have another 4 years,
Right.
what do you think are some of the priorities that you have going into the next 4 years that maybe shifted a bit, thinking like, well, I wasn't even sure if I was going to run, and now I am, so now I have
Right.
another 4 years to fully commit to this. What are some of those priorities?
So some of the things that I would like to see our schools get in place is um, looking at the possibility of doing some tutoring within school hours. We've been able to, with ESSER funding, which is money that came to us through the federal government during COVID, we were able to have after school programs or programs during Christmas, winter break, spring break, in the summer to kind of catch students up, because we know that a lot of students lost some of that learning during the COVID time. But those funds are exhausted. And one of my concerns that I had with that program, and I kept asking, how much are we investing into it, and are the children actually learning, is that when you do that tutoring after school hours, it's when the students need a break. It's when the students need to have to fuel up, right? Or to do the things that they find fun, that can build their self-esteem, which eventually translates into better learning. So being able to have some tutoring during, within the school hours, I think would be great. I'm really looking to see how we can grow our ability to connect children from the time they graduate to what they do next. So I talk about this often at my very first graduation, because we speak at all the graduations and we get to shake the hands of every graduate. I would ask, what's next? And many of them were able to say, oh, I'm doing this, I'm doing that. But too many of them said, I don't know. And to me, that's unacceptable. Our end goal cannot just be graduation. We have to be able to connect them, help them find what it is they want to do, If it's to go straight into the workforce, let's teach them interview skills. Let's teach them how to apply for a job. If they want to go, into vocation, let's help them explore that career interest, that they want to do, and look to see what they might like. And if it's the college, be able to continue providing those resources to get them into college. So that's something I want to see us tighten up, do a little bit better. I believe very much in supporting students so that they become independent, but we can't let them go so too soon. We got to make sure and kind of hold their hand between that graduation and postgraduate and see what they're going to do and help them with that success.
That's great. Mary, what are some of the initiatives that maybe you've already applied or that you're looking forward to apply to encourage parental involvement? It's a time where parents are very busy. They've got work, they got to go home, they got to cook dinner, they got to have soccer practice.
Right.
What are some of the initiatives or maybe just, ideologies that you have about how to get parents involved in that process?
So it's funny you ask. A lot of parents have said, with all of the safety precautions in place, they sometimes feel like they're a little bit of an outsider. So one of the things that I have already been trying to do is establish really good relationships with our commissioners and put on movie nights at our schools, at our parks, where families can come in, meet the other families. And so that's one thing I've done. The other thing that I've done is I held, and I plan to continue doing this, is I held a meeting where all the PTA presidents of all of my schools were invited. And it was just an open forum. Let's have conversations. What's working at your school? What would you like to do at your school? And it was amazing. I spoke for 5 minutes, and the next hour and a half, it was the parents all coming up with different ways and suggestions to other PTA presidents of how they can improve and increase their parent involvement. One of the other things I've done is a lot of the school board members have town halls where we recognize students, and there might be different topics. Well, I did one recognizing the dangers of social media, and it was so positive that even the district staff said, wow, we need to get them to record themselves, record this presentation, and maybe put it on Parent Academy. Parent Academy is one thing that we have within the school district that provides a lot of resources to parents, a lot of pre-recorded videos that parents can watch. So we're looking to see if we can incorporate something on the dangers of social media on Parent Academy. And I've been pushing, I just asked at the last committee, we're looking to open offices for parent academies. And there's some up north, but there aren't any down south in my area. So they're looking to opening 3, offices within the South area that parents can go and get some support.
Well, Mary, one of the conversations that's very loud right now in Florida is that there is a teacher shortage, and we don't have enough teachers for the students that we have. I know that it's a multifaceted problem and that there isn't a one size fits all solution, but what are some of the ideas that you have that could potentially help resolve or alleviate that current need that exists right now?
Right. So, like you said, it's so multifaceted. There's so many parts to that. One of the things obviously is that teachers are retiring. They reach a retirement age. I'm concerned about the teachers who haven't reached retirement age and are just burnt out or disillusioned with becoming a teacher, right? So, one of the things that I actually did, I didn't mention this earlier, is an initiative to address something called RTI. It's very specific within the schools, but there's a process in the schools where we do interventions with students to identify if there's potentially a learning disability or something that's keeping the child from learning. Well, that process can be so cumbersome and requires so much data that it's a lot of stress on a teacher. So finding ways to simplify certain processes that are in place and things that are required of teachers outside of the classroom, I think is one way where we can try to increase teacher satisfaction. And then aside from increasing that teacher satisfaction, I say this, and this isn't really an initiative that I can put through. As a college counselor, when I talk to students and talk to them about their career interests, many of them will tell me they love children and they've thought of being a teacher, but that their teachers tell them they shouldn't be teachers. And I know and I understand all the reasons that they might say that. But as a teaching profession, we can't downgrade our own profession. We have to encourage others that enjoy it and inspire them to achieve that, right? So I think that's another facet. And then the other biggest problem I think that we have is where we live. When you look at, a young teacher coming out of college, 22, 23 years old, if they have to live on their own in this county, that is extremely difficult. And so one of the things that we are having very strong conversations on the board is that we need to leverage our assets. We need to look at land that we're not using and how we can potentially repurpose it, working together with public and private entities to possibly create workforce housing for our employees. And we might not be able to compensate them in salary, but if we can provide at least some kind of affordable workforce housing, that might help to be able to attract people. Because I've spoken to many principals and even principals at private and charter schools. I mean, it's not just in the public school system, it's everywhere. They'll hire teachers from out of the area, and once the teacher actually starts looking to see where they can live, they call back and they say, I'm sorry, but I can't go. I can't move to Miami. I simply can't afford it.
That's unfortunate. Thank you for sharing that. Mary, another conversation hot topic button is people want to know where it is that our candidates stand on school choice. What's your position on school choice?
It's very simple. As a parent and as a taxpayer, you should be able to choose where your child attends school. It's that simple. Yes, there's this talk about public funding, but that public funding is coming from a parent paying taxes. And so if you are paying the taxes for school, you should have the opportunity to send your child to whatever school you'd like.
Mary, so the most important purpose of this entire interview was to get people out to vote. We just checked the numbers. We've only got a 10% of registered voters showing up to vote in this primary election. We can't continue to do this. This is how the country is lost. So I want to give you just a couple of minutes to kind of talk to our audience and let them know, voting is already going on, guys. August 20th is not the day to go vote. That is the last
Yes.
day to vote. So if you can just give our audience, like, why should they go out there? Life is busy, but they need to find the time to go out there and vote. Why should they go out and vote for you?
Thank you. So I was going to say there's many reasons why you should go out and vote, but let me tell you why you should vote for me. Aside from the things we've talked about, something that you haven't asked me is, where do I stand on certain issues that have to do with protecting the innocence of our children? And that's one of the reasons why I'm there. We need to get education back to basics. School needs to be a place where students go to learn to read, to write, math, their science, their social studies. Anything else that's outside, a lot of the topics that are going on in this world is not for children. I say that not only as a parent, I say that as a psychologist, understanding the development of children and when they're able to understand certain things. And then not to mention that some of those topics that are going on outside in society, parents have a right to discuss with their children some of those topics like LGBTQ, topics of what's happening in the world, topics of what's happening in this country, right? When you look and see there's so much division, there's so much hate, and none of that should be part of our schools. And so that's one of the biggest things that I stand for. And why should they go out and vote in District 7? I will tell you, if you are of conservative mind, right now our board is a conservative board, but it is only by 5-4. If I lose my seat, and if I do, it would swing. It would swing the other way. And so it is extremely important that if you are interested in protecting the innocence of our children and you live in District 7, you've got to go out and vote for me and make sure that we continue to have that conservative voice in our school board.
I'm so glad you brought that up. We're very proud of the conservative majority in Miami-Dade County, a feat that I don't think anybody thought that a city that has been historically blue, sometimes purple, would be kind of the beacon of conservatism for the entire country, being that now we are the largest conservative body in the country. And to know that that's only by a hair. It's good that you stress that so that people know how important it is that their presence is at the polls. Mary, thank you so much for taking the time to connect with us and talking to our audience. I wish you so much luck in the polls, and we'll follow up after and see where it is that we're at and how we keep the fight going.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you for that opportunity.
Thank you.